The cake sat untouched in front of me, 30 candles flickering in the dim light of our family's restaurant. The same restaurant I'd spent countless nights saving from bankruptcy, sacrificing my personal life to keep our legacy alive. I should have known better. I'm sorry, what did you just say? I stared at my father across the table, certain I'd misheard him. You're out, Trisha. Dad's voice was cold, clinical. We're restructuring the business, and you're no longer needed. My mother sat beside him, her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on the tablecloth. The birthday banner above their heads suddenly felt like a cruel joke. I just saved this place, I said, my voice barely a whisper. 3 months of working 18-hour days. I brought in new investors, modernized our systems. And now we can handle it from here, Dad cut in. You've always been too ambitious, too controlling. This is a family business, not your personal project. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made my mother flinch. Family business? I am family. Not anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. We've already had the paperwork drawn up. You'll be compensated for your shares, of course. My best friend Sarah, who'd been sitting silently beside me, grabbed my hand under the table. I could feel her trembling with anger. Owen, she started, but I squeezed her hand to stop her. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. The compensation package is quite generous. My mother finally spoke, still not meeting my eyes. You should be grateful. Grateful? I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. I gave up everything for this place, my relationships, my dreams of starting my own business. And now you're free to pursue them, Dad said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Happy birthday, Trisha. The restaurant had emptied out. Our regular customers had sensed the tension and made quick exits. Only my cousin Stacy remained at the bar, pretending to clean glasses while watching the drama unfold. You know what? I straightened my spine, smoothed down my dress. Thank you. Thank you for showing me exactly who you are, on today of all days. I grabbed my purse, leaving the envelope untouched. Sarah stood with me, her face flushed with protective anger. Trisha, my mother called out as I turned to leave. Don't make this difficult. Just take the money and keep it, I said, not turning back. Consider it my final investment in this place. Let's see how long it lasts without me. The night air hit my face as I pushed through the door, Sarah right behind me. I made it halfway down the block before my legs started shaking. I can't believe they did this, Sarah said, pulling me into a fierce hug. After everything you've done, they think they're so clever, I whispered, my mind already racing ahead. They have no idea what I'm capable of. A text lit up my phone. Enzo, my mentor from business school. Heard what happened. Come see me tomorrow. It's time. I smiled, despite the tears threatening to fall. For 3 years, I'd been quietly learning from Enzo, developing business plans, making connections. I'd known somehow that this day would come. You're planning something, Sarah said, studying my face. I know that look. They want me gone? Fine. But they have no idea what they've just unleashed. I wiped my eyes, straightened my shoulders. I'm done being the dutiful daughter. What are you going to do? I thought about the business plan hidden in my apartment, the investors who'd been impressed by my work at the restaurant, the network I'd built while my parents weren't paying attention. I'm going to build something so successful it'll make their precious restaurant look like a lemonade stand. And when they come crawling back, because they will, I'll remember this night. Sarah linked her arm through mine as we walked toward the subway. Happy birthday, Trisha. Something tells me this is going to be your year after all. Behind us, the restaurant's lights dimmed, and I didn't look back. They thought they were writing me off, but they'd just written the first chapter of their own downfall. I was done being the person they thought I was. The obedient daughter, the silent partner, the one who always put family first. It was time to show them who I really am. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Enzo leaned back in his leather chair, a knowing smile on his face. His corner office overlooked the city skyline, a view I'd always envied. Let's just say I learned from the best. I handed him my business plan, watching as he flipped through the pages. Everything's ready. I just needed the right moment. And getting disowned on your birthday was that moment? He raised an eyebrow. They did me a favor. I stood and walked to the window. No more pretending. No more holding back. Your market analysis is solid, Enzo said, tapping the document. And these investor contacts? You've been busy. I had to be careful. If my father had found out, he'd have sabotaged you. Enzo finished my thought. Speaking of which, have you seen this? He turned his laptop toward me. On the screen was a local business news article. Bond family restaurant chain announces major expansion plans. They're using my investments for expansion? I laughed. They won't last 6 months without proper management. Which is exactly why we need to move fast. Enzo grabbed his phone. I'm calling Marcus at Verdi Capital. He's been asking about you since that charity gala. While Enzo made the call, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Your mom's been calling me. Wants to know if you're being reasonable yet. Should I block her? I typed back, let her call. The more they think I'm devastated, the better. Marcus can meet tomorrow, Enzo announced. And he's bringing 2 other potential investors. That fast? Your reputation precedes you, Trisha. Word got around about how you turned that restaurant around. People noticed. A knock at the door interrupted us. Wade, one of Enzo's junior associates, stepped in with a stack of papers. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. He handed me a printout. Your father's loan applications got leaked. They're leveraging everything they own for this expansion. I scanned the documents, my heart racing. They're using the house as collateral? Are they insane? Your father always did think he was invincible, Enzo said. Wade, how did you get these? I asked. He grinned. Let's just say I know someone at the bank who owes me a favor. Also, I want in on whatever you're planning. I looked at Enzo, who nodded. Wade's one of our best. You'll need a strong team. Okay, I said. But this stays between us. I'm going to need office space, somewhere private. Use my startup incubator, Enzo offered. 10th floor's empty. No one will look for you there. Perfect. I gathered my things. Wade, can you start Monday? Already gave my notice here. He grinned. Enzo knew you'd say yes. As I headed for the elevator, Enzo called after me. Trisha, remember, revenge is best served profitable. The next morning, I sat across from Marcus and his investment partners in a sleek conference room. My hands were steady as I presented my vision. A modern take on traditional cuisine with a tech-forward approach to delivery and customer experience, I explained. Everything my father's business isn't, and you can guarantee no conflict with your family's ventures? Marcus asked. My family made it very clear I'm no longer their concern. I met his gaze. Check the paperwork. I'm legally free to compete. That's all I needed to hear. Marcus slid a term sheet across the table. We're in. $5 million with an option for 3 more in 6 months. My phone buzzed again. Stacy this time. Your dad's going crazy. 3 managers quit this week. He's blaming your sabotage, but I know you're not even involved. Yet. I smiled, turning back to Marcus. When can we start? How's tomorrow? That evening, I stood in my new office space, empty except for a desk and chair. Wade was setting up computers, while Sarah arranged takeout containers on a folding table. To new beginnings. Sarah raised her coffee cup. And to your parents eventually eating their words. They won't know what hit them, Wade added. I looked out at the city lights, thinking of my father's expansion plans, built on loans he couldn't repay. Of my mother's desperate calls to Sarah. Of the empire I was about to build. No, I said softly. They won't. My phone lit up with another notification. A business alert about my father's company. I opened it, then smiled. What is it? Sarah asked. Their first new location just failed health inspection. Looks like they're off to a great start without me. The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd imagined, and this was just the beginning. Your father just fired another manager. Stacy slid into the booth across from me at a quiet cafe, far from our family's usual haunts. That's 4 in 3 months. How bad is it? I stirred my coffee, trying to keep my voice neutral. Bad. She glanced around before continuing. The new locations are hemorrhaging money. The original restaurant's losing regular customers, and... She hesitated. And? They're talking about selling the house. Your mom was crying in the office yesterday. I'd been expecting this, but it still hit hard. That house held 18 years of memories. Holidays, birthdays, family dinners, before everything went wrong. Have they tried reaching out to you? Stacy asked. Mom leaves voicemails. Dad sends formal emails through his lawyer. I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest message. As a gesture of goodwill, we're offering to reinstate your position as junior manager. Can you believe that? Stacy snorted. Do they know about my company? No, we've kept everything under wraps. I smiled. The press release goes out next week. They're going to lose it. Stacy's eyes sparkled. Especially when they see the investor list. My phone buzzed. Wade calling. Sorry, I need to take this. Wade? What's up? You need to see this. Your father just applied for another emergency loan. The bank denied it. I ended the call looking at Stacy. It's happening faster than I thought. Trisha. She reached across the table. I know they hurt you, but they're still family. Family? I stood up, throwing cash on the table. Come with me, I want to show you something. 20 minutes later, we walked into my company's headquarters. The space hummed with energy. Developers testing our ordering platform. Chefs experimenting in the test kitchen. Marketing teams reviewing campaign materials. This is what I built in 3 months, I told Stacy as we toured the floor. While they were running their business into the ground, I was creating something new. Wade intercepted us by the test kitchen. Perfect timing. The first location's ready for inspection. Location? Stacy asked. We're opening 6 restaurants next month, I explained. Modern cuisine, tech-integrated ordering, delivery optimization, everything Dad refused to consider. Ms. Bond? A young chef approached with a tablet. The new menu items are ready for tasting. As we sampled dishes, Stacy grew quieter. Finally, she set down her fork. They have no idea what's coming, do they? No one does. I checked my watch. Except, the elevator doors opened and Sarah walked in with Marcus and 2 other investors. The numbers look fantastic, Marcus announced, shaking my hand. We're doubling our investment. Your marketing strategy is brilliant. Thank you. I turned to Stacy. Want to stay for the meeting? See what a properly run business looks like? Before she could answer, her phone rang. She checked the screen and paled. It's your dad. Put it on speaker. Stacy? My father's voice sounded strained. Is Trisha with you? No, Uncle Owen. I'm at work. If you see her, tell her we should talk. The business. We could use her input. I motioned for Stacy to end the call. They're desperate, Sarah observed. Good. I pulled up our launch timeline on the conference room screen. Because in exactly 2 weeks, they'll learn just how badly they underestimated me. Trisha, Stacy said quietly, what you've built here, it's incredible. But are you sure you want to... To what? Succeed? Show them exactly what they threw away? I faced her. They didn't just fire me, Stacy. They disowned me. On my birthday, after I saved their business. I know, but no buts. I softened my tone. I appreciate you looking out for them. But they made their choice. Now they can live with the consequences. My phone lit up with a news alert. Local restaurant chain faces. Multiple health code violations. 3 locations temporarily closed. Looks like those consequences are already starting, Wade commented. I forwarded the article to my father's email with a single line. Need my input yet? Stacy read the message over my shoulder and whistled. You're really doing this. Watch me. I turned to the room. Let's go over the launch plan one more time. Everything needs to be perfect. As the team gathered around the conference table, I caught my reflection in the window. I barely recognized myself. Gone was the dutiful daughter, replaced by someone stronger, someone who wouldn't back down. My phone buzzed again. A text from my father. We need to talk, please. I showed it to Sarah, who squeezed my hand. Ready for this? I've been ready since the day they threw me away. I deleted the message without responding. Now, let's make some history. I wasn't surprised when they showed up at my office. What surprised me was how small they looked, sitting in my sleek reception area like lost tourists in a foreign country. Your father and mother are here, Wade announced, barely concealing his smirk. Should I tell them you're in a meeting? No. I straightened my designer blazer. Let's get this over with. They stood when I entered. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed, and Dad's usual confident posture had crumbled into something approaching defeat. Nice office, Dad said, attempting his businessman voice. Very modern. Thanks, it's amazing what you can accomplish in 3 months when you're not being held back. I gestured to my conference room. Shall we? Mom touched my arm as I passed. I stepped away smoothly, pretending not to notice her hurt expression. Trisha, Dad started once we were seated. We've been trying to reach you. I know. I got all 27 voicemails, 43 emails, and that pathetic offer to make me junior manager again. I placed my tablet on the table. What do you want? We need your help, Mom burst out. The business is failing. I pulled up their financial records on the conference room screen. 3 closed locations, 2 pending health code violations, and a mountain of debt. Did I miss anything? Dad's face reddened. How did you get those numbers? I have friends at the bank. Unlike you, I build relationships, not burn them. I leaned back. You have 10 minutes. Make them count. They exchanged glances before Dad spoke. We want to propose a partnership. Your expertise, our brand recognition. Your brand? I laughed. Your brand is toxic. Your Yelp reviews are a disaster. Your staff turnover rate is approaching 100%. We can fix that, Mom pleaded. Together, as a family. Family? I stood up, my calm facade cracking. You disowned me. On my birthday. Remember? We were wrong, Dad said quietly. We see that now. No, you see that you're desperate. I pulled up another document. You've mortgaged the house, maxed out your credit lines. You're 1 bad month away from bankruptcy. What do you want? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. Name your price. I pressed a button on my tablet. Wade entered with a folder. Total surrender, I said. Sign over the entire business to me. I'll assume your debts, retain any staff worth keeping, and rebuild from the ground up. That's everything we have, Mom protested. No, it's everything you have left. There's a difference. I slid the papers across the table. Sign now, and I'll make sure you keep the house. Refuse, and I'll wait until after the bankruptcy. Your choice. Dad reached for the papers with trembling hands. You planned this. I learned from the best. I smiled coldly. You taught me that business isn't about family, remember? As they read through the documents, Sarah poked her head in. Your 2 o'clock is here. The press is waiting in the lobby. Press? Mom looked up sharply. Did I forget to mention? I turned the tablet to show them my company's website. We're launching next week. 6 locations, state-of-the-art technology, full media coverage. 6 locations? Dad's face went pale. That's impossible. Actually, it's quite possible when you have competent management and $30 million in venture capital. I checked my watch. 5 minutes left. Are you signing? Mom started crying silently. Dad's hand shook as he picked up the pen. One more thing, I added as he was about to sign. You'll both need to attend the launch event. Smile for the cameras. Show everyone that the family business is evolving. You're enjoying this? Mom accused. Honestly? Yes. I met her gaze. Consider it payback for my 30th birthday party. At least I'm giving you something in return. The signatures took less than a minute. Wade whisked the papers away for processing while I stood. The press release goes out in an hour. Wade will brief you on what to say. I headed for the door. Oh, and Mom? That necklace you're wearing? The one Grandma left me in her will? I'll need that back. Trisha, please, she began. You can mail it. I'm busy for the next few weeks launching my empire. I paused at the door. By the way, how does it feel? Being on the other side of a hostile takeover? Neither answered. I didn't expect them to. Outside the conference room, Sarah waited with a concerned expression. You okay? Never better. I straightened my shoulders. Is the press ready? They're waiting. But Trisha, was all that necessary? I thought about my birthday cake, the cruel words, the months of silence. Yes, I said simply. It was. Now let's go make some headlines. Rising star revolutionizes family business. Local restaurant chain gets modern makeover. The headline splashed across every local news outlet, accompanied by photos of me cutting ribbons at our new locations. My parents stood in the background of each shot, their forced smiles fooling no one. Your interview's trending, Wade announced, dropping a stack of newspapers on my desk. Twitter's calling you the restaurant queen and business badass of the year. What about the numbers? I asked, scanning the morning reports. Opening week revenue is triple our projections. The app has 50,000 downloads already. And he grinned. Your father's old customers are jumping ship to us. My office door burst open as Stacy rushed in. Have you seen what your mom's doing? She thrust her phone at me. On the screen was my mother's social media post. Heartbroken by my daughter's hostile takeover. A mother's love betrayed for profit. Seriously? I laughed. She's playing the victim card? The comments are brutal, Wade noted, scrolling through his phone. But not for you. Everyone's calling them out for disowning you first. My desk phone lit up. Enzo calling. Turn on channel 7, he said when I answered. Now. Wade grabbed the remote, and my father's face filled the wall-mounted screen. He was standing outside our flagship location, speaking to a reporter. While we're proud of Trisha's success, he was saying, we want to make it clear that this was a planned transition, not a hostile. Is that why you disowned her on her 30th birthday? The reporter interrupted. Part of the plan? The camera caught my father's face falling. That's a private family matter. Sources say you fired her after she saved the business from bankruptcy. The reporter pressed. Then tried to rehire her as a junior manager when the company started failing again. Care to comment? I muted the TV. Get me that reporter's contact info. I want to send flowers. Already done. Wade smirked, along with an exclusive interview offer. Sarah walked in with coffee and more news. The investors are ecstatic. Marcus wants to fast-track the expansion to other states. Perfect timing. I pulled up our project timeline. Because I just got an interesting email from the bank. Seems our competitors are struggling to meet their loan payments. Your parents? Stacy asked. No, the River District restaurants. Their owner's looking to sell. I smiled. Guess who's making an offer? You're not done, are you? Sarah studied my face. This is bigger than your parents now. It always was. I stood and walked to the window. They just helped me see what I'm capable of. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Please, can we talk? Just us? Before I could respond, Wade interrupted. Your 11 o'clock is here, the food critic from the Times. Send them to the test kitchen. I'll be right there. I turned to Stacy. Want to watch me charm another influencer? She hesitated. Actually, I wanted to tell you something. I quit. The family restaurant? No, my job at the bank. I was wondering... She straightened her shoulders. Is that operations manager position still open? I studied my cousin's face. You want to work for me? After everything? I want to work for someone who knows what they're doing. She met my gaze. Someone who values talent over loyalty. The irony, Sarah muttered. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Mom. Your father's not eating. Not sleeping, please. Ignore it, Wade advised. They're trying to manipulate you. No, I replied. They're realizing actions have consequences. I turned to Stacy. The job's yours. Start Monday. The test kitchen was buzzing when we arrived. The food critic was sampling our fusion dishes while photographers captured every angle. Ms. Bond. The critic stood to greet me. Fascinating operation you have here. Tell me, how does it feel to be the youngest restaurateur to successfully integrate AI with traditional cuisine? It feels like validation, I answered, noting my father watching from the doorway. Sometimes people underestimate you. The trick is to let them. And the family angle? Your parents seem uncomfortable with your success. I smiled directly at my father. Change is always uncomfortable, especially when you're stuck in the past. He turned and walked away, shoulders slumped. For a moment, I felt a twinge of something. Not regret exactly. More like recognition of the torch being passed, whether they liked it or not. Your next appointment's here, Wade whispered. The Restaurant Association wants to discuss your keynote speech. Tell them I'll be right there. I watched my father's retreating figure. And Wade? Send my mother a message. Tell her I'll meet her for coffee tomorrow. Are you sure? Yes. I straightened my jacket. It's time they understood. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about legacy. My legacy. The food critic raised her glass. To the future of dining? No, I corrected, raising mine. To the future of everything. The coffee shop was neutral territory, not one of my restaurants or my family's. Mom sat at a corner table, fidgeting with her cup, looking smaller than I remembered. You're not wearing Grandma's necklace, I noted, sliding into the seat across from her. I shipped it to your office yesterday. She reached for my hand. I pulled back, opening my laptop instead. I have 30 minutes, I said. Make them count. Your father's not well, she started. The doctors say it's stress. If this is another guilt trip, I'm leaving. I met her eyes. You both made your choices. We made a mistake. Her voice cracked. We were proud and stupid and now you're facing the consequences. I turned my laptop to show her our latest numbers. See these? This is what happens when you let talent flourish instead of crushing it. The door chimed and Stacy walked in with a folder. Right on cue. The River District deal is done, she announced, purposefully loud enough for nearby tables to hear. We own all 6 locations. Mom's face paled. 6 more? But that means we now control 40% of the city's upscale dining market. I smiled. And we're just getting started. Trisha, please. Mom grabbed my wrist. Your father needs to feel like he still has some control. His pride. I yanked my hand away. What about my pride? When you both humiliated me at my own birthday party. Stacy sat down beside me. Aunt Martina, you should see her in action. She's incredible. The staff respects her, the customers love her. Of course they do. Mom interrupted. She's my daughter. I always knew she was special. No. I stood up. You don't get to claim credit now. You don't get to act proud after what you did. Ms. Bond? A young woman approached our table tentatively. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say, your story inspired me to leave my toxic family business. I start MBA classes next month. Congratulations. I smiled warmly. Send your resume when you graduate. We're always looking for brave, independent thinkers. The woman beamed and walked away. Mom watched the interaction with tears in her eyes. You've become everything we feared, she whispered. You mean successful? Independent? Better than you expected? No, Cold. Like us. Stacy snorted. Cold? Do you know what she did last week? Paid for her assistant's mother's cancer treatment? Set up a scholarship fund for culinary students. Cold people don't do that. My phone buzzed. Wade calling. The magazine photographer is here for the under 40 feature. Tell them I'll be there in 20. I gathered my things. We're done here. Wait. Mom reached into her bag. Your father wanted you to have this. She slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a photo. Me at 5 years old, standing on a chair in our old kitchen, helping Dad make pasta. Remember that day? Mom asked softly. You said you wanted to cook forever. I remember what he said back. I replied. Cooking is fine, but running the business is what matters. Well, guess what? I'm doing both. Better than he ever did. He knows that. We both do. She stood up. That's why it hurts so much. Good. I tucked the photo into my bag. Now you know how I felt. As I turned to leave, she called out, He's selling his wine collection, the one he spent 30 years building, to pay the medical bills. I paused. Send the bills to my office. I'll take care of them. Why? Because I'm not like you. I looked back at her. I don't destroy the things I love just because I'm angry. Outside, Stacy caught up with me. That was intense. It was necessary. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Dad. They needed to see the difference between power and leadership. The wine collection thing got to you, didn't it? I thought about those bottles, how Dad used to let me read the labels when I was little, teaching me about regions and vintages. Have Wade track down the buyers, I said finally. Buy everything back, store it at my house. Going soft? Stacy teased. No. I hailed a cab. Just remembering something Enzo told me. True power isn't about what you can take. It's about what you choose to give. And what are you choosing to give? I thought about the medical bills in my bag, the wine collection, the photo of a little girl who just wanted to cook forever. A lesson, I said. In grace. The cab pulled up and I could see Mom still watching from the coffee shop window. Let's go, I told Stacy. We have an empire to run. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, the woman who revolutionized the restaurant industry in just 6 months. The spotlight hit me as I walked onto the stage at the Women in Business conference. 300 faces stared back, phones recording, eager to hear my story. Thank you, I began, setting aside the prepared speech. But instead of talking about profit margins and market expansion, let's talk about something more important, the cost of being underestimated. In the front row, Sarah gave me an encouraging nod. Behind her, I spotted my father slipping into the back of the auditorium. He hadn't been invited. 6 months ago, I was disowned on my 30th birthday. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My crime? Being too ambitious, too controlling, too much. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Wade with another update about our latest acquisition. It could wait. They thought they were punishing me. Instead, they set me free. I paced the stage, making eye contact with young women in the audience. How many of you have been told to dim your light? To play small? To know your place? Hands shot up across the room. In the back, my father shifted uncomfortably. Here's what they don't tell you about success, I continued. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. A young woman in the 3rd row was crying silently, nodding along. I focused on her. In 6 months, I built a restaurant empire that's now worth $90 million. But that's not the interesting part. I smiled. The interesting part is what I learned about power. The door opened again, my mother entering this time, standing next to my father. Real power isn't in taking control. It's in lifting others up. I gestured to Stacy, who stood proudly in her operations manager suit. It's in paying for an employee's medical bills, creating scholarships, building something bigger than yourself. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Last week, I bought back my father's wine collection. I saw him stiffen in surprise. Not because I had to, but because sometimes grace is more powerful than revenge. Sarah was giving me the 2-minute warning signal, but I wasn't finished. To every woman who's been told she's too much, too ambitious, too loud, too demanding, I say this: let them underestimate you. Let them dismiss you. Then build something so magnificent they can't ignore you. The applause started before I finished speaking, rolling through the auditorium like thunder. In the back, my parents remained still, watching. Questions? The moderator asked as the clapping died down. Dozens of hands shot up. I pointed to the crying woman in the third row. How do you deal with the guilt? She asked. Of surpassing your family? I replaced guilt with gratitude, I answered. They taught me exactly who I didn't want to be. Another hand. What's next for your company? We're expanding nationally, I announced, and launching a mentorship program for women entrepreneurs. Applications open next month. The questions continued until Sarah gave me the cutoff signal. As I left the stage, Wade rushed up. The acquisition papers are ready, he whispered, and you've got 17 interview requests. Handle the interviews, I told him. I need to do something else first. I found my parents by the exit, looking lost among the crowd of young professionals. Your wine collection is at my house, I said to my father. You can pick it up anytime. Why? He asked, his voice rough. Because I remember you teaching me about vintages when I was 5. Some things are worth preserving. My mother touched my arm, and this time I didn't pull away. That speech, she said. You really meant it? About grace? Come to the office tomorrow, I replied. Both of you. We should talk about your roles in the company's future. Roles? My father's eyes widened. You'd still want us involved? In advisory positions only, I clarified, with very clear boundaries. Before they could respond, a group of young women surrounded me, asking for photos and advice. As I posed with them, I caught my father watching with what looked like pride. Real pride this time, not the possessive kind I'd grown up with. Ms. Bond? One of the women asked, would you mentor me? I looked at my parents, then back at the hopeful face before me. That's exactly what I'm here for. Later, as I left the conference center, Sarah caught up with me. So, advisory roles for your parents? Are you sure? Sometimes the biggest power move is extending an olive branch, I said, watching my parents walk to their car. Besides, they're about to learn something important. What's that? That the daughter they underestimated is now their boss. I smiled. And I'm a much better leader than they ever were. The letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning, hand-delivered to my office. The return address was from one of our original family restaurant's oldest customers. Dear Tricia, it began. Today I had lunch at both restaurants, your parents' original location and your new flagship store. The difference wasn't just in the food or service, it was in the spirit. Wade knocked and entered as I was reading. The advisory board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Your parents are already here. Let them wait, I said, continuing to read. Your father changed when he took over from his father. The letter went on. I watched him become harder, colder. But you've done the opposite. You've built something warm, inclusive, revolutionary. Thank you for showing us all a better way. I folded the letter and headed to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see my parents sitting stiffly among my executive team. Dad was wearing a visitor badge, a small but significant reminder of the new hierarchy. Good morning, I announced, entering the room. Let's talk about next quarter's projections. Before we start, my father interrupted, standing. I have something to say. Sarah tensed beside me, but I nodded for him to continue. I've been watching, he said. How you run things, how your staff looks at you, how customers rave about the experience. He swallowed hard. You've created something I never could, because I was too afraid to change. Owen, my mother warned, but he continued. The advisory position you offered, I don't deserve it. He pulled out a folder. Instead, I have a proposal. Inside was a deed, to the original restaurant. We want to donate it, he explained. Turn it into a training center for your mentorship program, if you'll have it. The room fell silent. I studied the document, then looked at my mother. And do you agree with this? It was my idea, she said softly. We can't change the past, but we can help shape the future. Stacy, now my head of operations, spoke up. The location would be perfect for the culinary school we've been planning. There's one condition, my father added. I want to teach there, not manage, teach. Share what I know about traditional cooking while learning about new methods from your team. I thought about that photo of 5-year-old me, standing on a chair in his kitchen, learning to make pasta. Okay, I said, but I have conditions too. I pulled up our latest blueprint on the screen, a modern teaching facility with both traditional and high-tech kitchens. First, we name it after Grandma. She always believed in combining old wisdom with new ideas. My mother wiped away a tear as I continued. Second, you both take actual cooking classes from our chef team. No shortcuts, no special treatment. And third, Dad asked, you come to Sunday dinner at my house, every week, to see your wine collection and... I paused. To be family again, on my terms. He sat down heavily, nodding. Your terms. Wade cleared his throat. Should I call the PR team? This would make a great story. No, I interrupted. Some things aren't for publicity. Some things are just about healing. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table as I pulled out the customer's letter. Listen to this, I said, reading it aloud. When I finished, my father had tears in his eyes. You proved us wrong, he admitted. About everything. No, I corrected him. I proved myself right. There's a difference. The meeting continued, but something had shifted. As we discussed expansion plans and training programs, my parents didn't try to dominate or control. They listened, offered suggestions when asked, and watched with growing understanding as their daughter commanded the room. Afterward, in my office, Sarah found me staring at the original restaurant sign through my window. You're really giving them another chance? She asked. I'm giving us all another chance, I replied. But this time, I'm writing the rules. My phone buzzed with a text from Stacy. Your dad's in the test kitchen, taking notes from our head chef. Your mom's actually smiling. Ready for the next chapter? Sarah asked. I thought about the journey, from betrayal to revenge to something deeper, more meaningful, about power and grace and how sometimes they're the same thing. Yes, I said, picking up my jacket. Let's go watch my father learn to make pasta. My way. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. Sometimes it's building something so beautiful that everyone wants to be part of it, even those who once cast you out. And that's a victory that tastes sweeter than any revenge.